It's time for Coby Mayo. We also have Rankings Movers, our Week 20 preview, and much more up next on a Kokomo Friday.
Alcantara, Soroka, you look so good in polka. Peralta, Manoa, bounce back for Aaron Giolito, Castillo, Yoshida, Mosuzuka.
Happy Kokomo Friday and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on August 2nd. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Our latest start of the year, I think, officially. So thank you all for waiting and for being here live. You know,
It was a 5-game day. What were we doing?
Every Friday podcast, I plan all these segments because it's usually a light slate, right? You just mentioned five-game slate. And then a bunch of stuff happens. So that is where we will start. We got Rankings Movers. We'll preview Week 20. Mike Trout is out for the season. But first, we need to begin with some big news, as it's finally time for Coby Mayo. And you know what? We don't usually start with our prospect spotlight, but guess what? Today, he's our prospect spotlight. It's time to discuss some of the prospects who are catching our eye from a fantasy perspective, thanks to our sponsors at Hyundai, where they're thinking about every step of your journey out on the road. So I hope you held the Mayo, because it is time for his promotion. And all they needed to see was one game of Ramon Urias going 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts to make this call. It's kind of desperation mode right now for the Baltimore Orioles. They lost again. They're 5-7 in their last 12 games. They are now tied for first in the AL East with the New York Yankees. We've talked a lot about Coby Mayo this season, but here are some reminders. He's 22 years old. He was a 4th-round pick back in 2020, and he is having a huge season at AAA. 301 batting average, 20 homers, 961 OPS across 77 games. Premium exit velocities, 91.2 average, 114.9 max. He is 54% rostered. Scott, how far did you move Coby Mayo up in the rankings? And do you think he is a must-add?
I moved him just outside the top 20 in my third base rankings, which may sound low at first blush, but it's still pretty good in that range of the rankings. So I have him behind like Ryan McMahon, Eugenio Suarez. I just moved ahead of him because he's been so ridiculously hot. It's hard to imagine I'd give him up for Coby Mayo at this point, because you're kind of hoping Coby Mayo ends up being what Eugenio Suarez has been lately. Colt Keith is in that same range, and of course he's been very hot too. Christopher Morel, I have him behind Mayo. I've dropped Jose Miranda behind Mayo because of playing time concerns. So that's a bunch of players who are widely rostered. Are they rostered everywhere? No.
Mark Vientos is still only like 75% rostered.
Right, and I've moved Mark Vientos up to 15th and Roto 13th in points, and he's, like you said, still available in some leagues. So in the shallowest leagues, if you're already set at third base and you don't want to have some risky rookie on your bench, I get it. But somebody in your league probably needs to add Mayo just for the upside, chasing the upside, because there's a ton of upside here. He's among prospects who haven't debuted yet. When I did my midseason top 50, I believe I had Coby Mayo, eliminating the guys who've already debuted, like James Wood and Jackson Holiday and all of them. I think I had him second. Yeah,
he was
I think I had him second.
Top non-pitcher.
And right, the first was a pitcher. So, it's a bad prospect. It's a bad time for prospects, so I don't want to oversell him either. Like, Wyatt Langford seemed about as safe as a hitting prospect again. Look how that went. It's been a really difficult year hitting prospects breaking in. But you just look at the ways we can measure Coby Mayo, whether it's the stat line, the surface level stat line, the exit velocity readings. It's not like he chases a lot and makes bad swing decisions. He does swing and miss a fair amount in the zone, but not really a worrisome amount. And even as a right-handed hitter going to Camden Yards, no, that's not going to help, but he hits the ball so hard that I don't think it's going to be something that ruins Coby Mayo either. It's just a question of, can he handle that difficulty curve? And I have no way of answering that. No way at all.
Mm-hmm. We had an episode of FBT on CBS Sports Network during the All-Star break, and I made a ridiculous, bold prediction on there that once Coby Mayo gets called up, he will lead the Orioles in home runs rest of season. Now, I realize that's a very bold prediction, right? And those things don't normally come true. But man, the exit velocities, the power, everything we've heard is that, yeah, I mean, if it clicks, he is going to hit for a lot of home runs, regardless of Camden Yards having that cutout in left field and being a tough place for right-handed power. Chris, where did you move Coby Mayo up to in the rankings? And would you drop James Wood to get Coby Mayo just in a vacuum? Because that is a question I keep getting on Twitter.
No, but I hope Coby Mayo is better than James Wood has been. Like, James Wood is a player with some really, really obvious skills. Like, his swing decisions are very, very good. He swings at the right pitches. He hits them hard. When he does, it's just there's a lot of swing and miss, and he doesn't hit them in the right direction. It's all on the ground. It's all the opposite way. James Wood is about as far down the spectrum of optimizing the contact he makes as anybody in baseball. He's also as talented as anyone in baseball. I mean, he's a freak athlete, obviously. So I would hope I have someone with less upside than James Wood. But look, if you're in a 10-team points league, maybe.
For what it's worth, just to interject real quick, if James Wood hadn't already debuted, he is one of the hitters I would have ranked ahead of Coby Mayo in those midseason rankings.
I think one thing you should try to avoid doing, and it's something that I think we've seen with, like, when the Orioles initially called up Jackson Holliday, 2 days ago now, there was a lot of, not Coby Mayo. And I point that out to say that what we are probably doing as a community when we're saying that Coby Mayo should have been brought up instead of Jackson Holliday is penalizing Jackson Holliday for an opportunity that Coby Mayo hasn't even had yet. And that's possibly what we would be doing with James Wood if we said drop James Wood. Like, basically, it would be holding it against James Wood and Jackson Holliday that they reached the majors before Coby Mayo and struggled. When, based on what they did in the minors, basically everyone agrees that those are better prospects than Coby Mayo, although Coby Mayo is a very good prospect. So I don't want to do that. But we are talking about a player who has a 926 OPS at the minor league level overall, 377 games. He's been young for every level. He's 22 years old in his second stint at AAA. He's hit 32 homers in 138 games, 932 OPS at AAA. Like, if any player is ready, if any player can be ready for the majors based on playing in the minors, Coby Mayo seems like he should be the guy who is. And so,
at least offensively.
Yeah, I mean, look, the defense, it sounds like is I think a work in progress might be the generous way to put it. So he might be a DH long term. Maybe he's so bad that he doesn't play every day. We've seen that with several highly regarded Orioles prospects in the past couple of years. Maybe Coby Mayo's the next one, but I don't know, man. You look at, like, I looked at the top projected players in one of my leagues. It was a 12-team roto league, not even unlimited IL spots. So it's not like, I think 350 players are rostered. So it's not that deep of a league. And the best projected third baseman the rest of the way were like Jose Iglesias and it was nothing. And Coby Mayo's not available in that league, to be clear. He's been stashed in that league for a while, but it's just to say that when you look at the waiver wire, I think I'd take the flyer on Coby Mayo over Jake Berger, even though Jake Berger is hot right now, and that might be a good comp for Coby Mayo in the short term. But I would rather take the chance that the young guy hits the ground running and becomes a superstar rather than going with also Rans, who we know can get hot and be very useful, but the ceiling probably isn't as high.
Last question on Coby Mayo. Would you drop fellow prospects, former top prospects, I guess you could say? I think the prospect eligibility has dissipated at this point, but Noelvi Marte and Brooks Lee, would you drop those for Coby Mayo?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Especially Marte. It's been really rough all season going back to the minors. So yeah.
Is
All
Lee even
right.
playing? I mean, I'm not sure. You say especially Marte. I guess Lee is still playing a fair amount, but he's doing nothing.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Hyundai for sponsoring this segment and the show. Learn more at HyundaiUSA.com. And now let's get into our oh my goodness gracious player from Thursday, except I didn't change the soundbite. So I'm not going to play it because I can't play the same soundbite 2 days in a row. That would be terrible.
Can we play Kokomo?
I can. No, I don't have that loaded up. Let's see. Do I have? I can play this. But none of our players are Josh Bell. But we'll just play that because I didn't have another thing loaded up. Scott, let's start with you. Your player of the night.
All right. My player of the night is Michael Toglia, who we've talked a lot about in recent weeks. But hey, he keeps on keeping on. 2 for 4 with a home run. His 19th now for a guy who's spent a lot of time in the minors. And this was another road home run for Michael Toglia. Notable since he's a Rockies hitter, and they're historically very bad on the road. He's hit 13 of his 19 home runs on the road. So this power is legit. Since returning to the majors in early June, Michael Toglia is batting .241 and slugging, well, it's gone up after this latest game, but .529. His expected stats for the season are basically right in line with that. So Michael Toglia, if you like what he's been doing, StatCast says it's exactly what he's supposed to be doing. He's also now up, since returning in early June, it's a total of 49 games, 15 home runs now in those 49 games. You give him a full season workload, that's like 45 home runs, the kind of pace he's on. So I don't think he's ever going to be a good source of batting average because he strikes out a lot. Even playing half his games at Coors Field, I think that's going to keep that stat down. But the power's legit, and he's delivering on it consistently no matter where he plays. He's playing every day for the Rockies. He's still available in like half of CBS sports leagues. The Rockies are at home every game next week.
Yeah.
Which I know I just said he's hit more than 2/3 of his home runs on the road. You
still want him playing at Coors Field.
Yeah. Yeah. So Michael Tolia's, spoiler alert, very high among my sleeper hitters this week, and it might not be much longer that he even qualifies for that list the way he's going.
When looking into the numbers since he's been recalled, I'm always blown away. I don't know why I don't realize more consistently that he's just been this good. 15 home runs in those 49 games. That over a full
and
season.
The underlying numbers back it up.
Yeah, that's like a near 50 home run pace. So he's been great. Michael Toglia, 50% rostered. I think people have been pretty slow here to pick him up. A couple names. Would you drop? I mean, like Ryan O'Hearn is 71% rostered. That feels like an easy move,
I think
right?
that's easy.
Like Justin Turner is still 60%. That feels like an easy move.
Yeah.
How about Toglia or Juan Yepez, who's been really good since he got called up?
I'm not the Yepez guy, so
I'd go
I'm
Toglia.
taking Toglia. Yeah, that's right.
I would go Toglia as well.
Michael
What about-
Toglia. I'm sorry. That's just been in my head since you played that drop, so I had to do it. I just had to get it out.
What about comparing him to another outfielder? Because he does have first base and outfield. Colton Cowser, someone we talked a lot about recently. Would you rather Cowser or Toglia?
I'm inclined to say Toglia. I want to see if my rankings agree with that, because if not, I'm going to adjust them. I have Toglia one spot ahead of Cowser. Look at that.
Way to go. Love when you agree with yourself.
How about that for consistency? All right, Chris, over to you, player of the night.
I hate going from a guy we're excited about to a guy who is giving us very little to be excited about, but that's where we're going. Max Meyer of the Miami Marlins, who we were impatiently waiting to return to the major league level. And I think maybe there was some overrating of Max Meyer in the time that we were waiting for him to return. He should have been in the majors long before he was. It was silly that the Marlins left him down as long as they did. All of that is true, and he's a one-pitch pitcher right now, and that slider is a good pitch, but I'm not sure Max Meyer does enough else well to be much more than a low-end streamer, especially given the awful situation he finds himself in Miami, where he's got a bad defense, a terrible offense. He's not going to get many wins. He's not going to pitch deep into games. He's got basically an average fastball in terms of velocity and physical characteristics. His changeup has shown no real reason to believe that it's anything more than a marginal pitch. It's really just the slider right now. And if that's not working, as we saw in his start before this, it's really bad. Like, he didn't have the slider at all, and it was horrible. This one wasn't much better. 400 runs in 5 innings, 7 strikeouts to 1 walk. That's pretty good over 5 innings against the Braves. But I don't know if Max Meyer is someone who needs to be rostered outside of even 15-team leagues. I'm not sure he needs to be rostered.
Yeah. I mostly agree with everything you said. The changeup does get whiffs, but I don't know that it's a great pitch for him either. I guess glass half full. He does get ground balls. The strikeout rate is okay. It's a good ball.
Look, I'm not saying he's completely useless. It's just like, I'm going to be excited about Max Meyer as a sleeper in 2025, assuming he gets through the rest of this season healthy. I'll take that chance because the Marlins have shown the ability to develop pitchers, and maybe he goes out and finds another pitch or improves the characteristics of his fastball or something. But right now, I don't think he's there.
I think that's fair. He is 55% rostered. Max Meyer looks like he is in line for 2 starts next week, both of them in Miami against the Reds and the Padres. Scott, I know you got your 2-star pitcher rankings that come out tomorrow. I assume Max Meyer is pretty low on that list.
Yeah, he's in the no thanks tier.
Okay.
Not interested in starting him.
That makes sense. Let's go over to my player of the night. And 60% of the time, it works every time. Yesterday, we talked about Vinnie P and the power being down. What happens on Thursday? Double dong. That's right. 2 for 5 with 2 home runs, 4 RBI. What's funny about this is that it came on the road too. So we spoke about how, his power has been held back in Kaufman, where he plays in Kansas City. Now, he did this in Detroit, so I don't know that it's like a big deal. It's just like a weird coincidence that he did it on the road. Detroit is also a really bad park to hit in for power. So I think those probably would have been out in Kansas City as well. But it's just funny whenever this happens. We talk about a player, and then they go out the next day, and they go out and have a big game. So,
well, one of the home runs was 367 feet. So it's not like, and the other one was less than 400 feet. And it's not like these were no doubters. Yeah, no, it is funny. It is funny. Look, Vinnie Pasquantino's good. He'd be better if he didn't play half his games in Kansas City. That's really
I will
the
say
whole thing.
I think Comerica is probably, this is just eyeballing the dimensions. It looks a little deeper at Kaufman to right field. You think of most of the players who have really struggled at Comerica, it's mostly been right-handed power hitters, so it could still be that this is a better park for Vinnie Pasquantino specifically to be hitting in. Possibly.
Yeah. One of the home runs he hit would have been out in 30 out of 30 ballparks. The other one, 24 out of 30. One of them, Kauffman Stadium would not have been a home run. Yeah. So I stand corrected. 2 home runs on the road, and he needed to be on the road to get those home runs here in Detroit. I think a lot of what we said yesterday still remains, but maybe this is kind of a jump-off point for some more power in the second half.
I mean,
for Vinnie Pasquantino.
This is like the 3rd time that this has happened this season where we've talked about Vinnie Pasquantino not performing, and then he immediately gets hot. So, Vinnie Pasquantino sucks. Yeah. And he will never hit another home run as long as the season goes. I will take the hit to my reputation by getting that one on the record if it means Vinnie Pasquantino does it again tomorrow.
There you go. We got 10 home runs coming this weekend for Vinnie Pasquantino. Want to give a shout out to his teammate, Bobby Witt Jr., who, I mean, he's just ridiculous right now.
Unbelievable.
The batting average is up to 350.
He has like
I had to do a triple take.
Yeah, me too.
I think he has 7 more multi-hit games than anyone in baseball. I saw on the Royals broadcast the other day.
Crazy. 2 for 4 with his 20th home run. He also became the first player ever to go 20-20 in each of his first 3 seasons. Bobby Witt Jr., superstar, one of the faces of baseball. Congrats to Royals fan. That guy is so ridiculously fun. Let's quick reminder, download and follow FBT and 5 wherever you listen to podcasts. We will have a bonus prospect episode coming out every Saturday of the season, and a programming note that I will not be on the podcast next week, going on a little family vacation.
So hiss.
My parents' 40th wedding anniversary, man. How are you going to boo the parents? It's messed up. Well, anyway, I'm going to be out, but nonetheless, you're in good hands here with Scott and Chris. Let's take our first break. When we return, we'll talk about Mike Trout, done for the season, right after this.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
Welcome back in, and Mike Trout is done for the season. Suffered a meniscus tear in his left knee for the second time this year, and his season ends after just 29 games. Only a 220 batting average, but was providing big power and speed in the first month. 10 homers, 6 steals, and 867 OPS. And obviously, it's just really sad. I mean, this is probably the best hitter, one of the best hitters of his generation that we've, overall that we've seen in our lifetimes. And his career has just been completely derailed by injuries. What's next for Mike Trout? He turns 33 years old next week. He's played just 266 games over the past 4 seasons. 41%, just 41% of his possible games played over the past 4 years. His ADP entering this year was 55.8. Just looking ahead to next year, I don't see how anybody could use a top 100 pick on Mike Trout. Based on the injuries he suffered.
You ask what's next. Here's what Angels GM Perry Manasian. I don't know how to say his name.
I think it's Manasian.
Manasian, okay. Here's what he says is next, and I quote, "He's going to come back, win MVP, and hit 70 home runs. Book it."
No way. He said
That's
that?
the quote. Yep. Book it, Frank.
I mean, I love showing confidence in your players. That's great, but also not realistic. So yeah, I don't think it's.
I think he may have been a little caught up in the emotion at the moment when he said that, but
right. Yeah, I mean, my point remains. I don't think he'll be a top 100 pick in fantasy next year. I mean, obviously things can change. Maybe we get suckered in spring training once again, and I don't really know if he can be moved either. Trout is owed $223 million over the next 6 years. Chris, do you think even if the Angels tried that they can move Mike Trout in the offseason or anytime soon?
Yeah, I think some team would be willing to take the chance that Mike Trout can be the difference maker for their roster. But I get the point. Like, you can't rely on him right now. You can't expect him to be an everyday player moving forward. We might have to have a conversation about Mike Trout being a DH moving forward, even though I'm not necessarily sure any of his injuries are related to playing in the outfield. It's still extra wear and tear. Remember, he was running earlier this season.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Mike Trout was on like a 50 homer, 30 steal pace before his injury. Yeah, I mean, look, it's depressing. Like Ken Griffey Jr. is the what could have been player of my generation growing up. And his injuries didn't really start until he was like 30, 31. He was still a full-time player as a 30-year-old. Trout hasn't really been a full-time player since like 28. And so it's, I think, genuinely one of the biggest tragedies of my life as a baseball fan, that Mike Trout's career is being so grievously injured by injuries. And I can just only hope he stays healthy next year. And I don't know. I maybe draft him in the 11th round and hope I get 90 games out of him. I mean, look, the thing is, when we talk about players who miss time with injury, too many people look at it as, well, if he only plays 90 games, he won't be worth that spot. And it's like, but you don't get a 0 for the rest of that time, right? And if Mike Trout did play 100 games next year, if you put his production up with some random schlub that you get on, like whatever the replacement level outfielder is, that's probably going to be worth a 10th round pick. Now, he hasn't played 100 games, I think, since 2019.
No, he's done it once since then. He did it in 2022.
Okay. So like 100 games is asking a lot at this point, but I can still see Mike Trout being a very, very valuable fantasy player and a player worth picking inside the top 150 next year, but probably not inside the top 100. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the way you guys are talking, I'm going to draft a lot of Mike Trout next year. It sounds like the shallower the league, the more true it is that you could absorb an injury from a pick that late pretty easily. In a 15-team league, the replacement level player is much lower, so it's harder to do. But in a 12-team league, I think that'll definitely be worth the risk.
And also, I just want to say, I see a lot of people like bad-mouthing Trout or making jokes about his injuries, and that sucks. And like, I don't understand this impetus people have to like badmouth or mock players who get hurt. He is way more frustrated about his inability to stay healthy and the derailing of what should be like a top 10 career in the history of Major League Baseball. He is much more frustrated about that than you. And I'm seeing it in the chat. I'm seeing it on Twitter. It annoys me to no end. Be human beings.
Yeah. Well, I agree, Chris, but unfortunately that just kind of seems like the state of the entire universe where we're at right now. Last point I'll add on Mike Trout, it's just the floor for games played. I mentioned 29 was a career low, but 36 in 2021 as well. I mean, that was a 162 game season. That was coming off, the shortened COVID year. So I mean, the floor is just so low in terms of playing time. I just
right.
I'm not going to do it.
But what are the chances?
I'm going to let Scott draft Mike Trout next year.
No, I realize this is a funny thing to say, given that it just happened.
Yeah.
But what are the chances he re-tears his meniscus? That's what happened to him this year.
Fool me once, shame on my meniscus. Fool me twice, also, but fool me 3 times.
Yeah. What are the chances he re-tears his meniscus? Because normally, like, a torn meniscus in baseball is not a career-altering injury. It's annoying. It costs a player some time, but it's not like a career-altering injury. So, yeah, I mean, maybe next year it'll be something else. But it's not like it's not like this is recurring back issues, that you just are always going to be there for the rest of his career.
I am no doctor.
He did have that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They haven't been recurring. He did have a spout. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I feel like every time you tear your meniscus, it probably just makes things worse overall for your knees. So,
well, it also depends on how they approach the second surgery, because they repaired it before. Would they take it out this time, which tends to shorten careers? I would assume not, but yeah, meniscus are a tricky injury at best. It's like a part of the body that has really poor blood flow, so they don't heal well. There actually are setbacks for meniscus surgeries are relatively common relative to other injuries. So I don't know. Hopefully a full off season. He comes back next year and is awesome. That's all I can hope for. But yeah, you can't go into next season expecting anything from him.
Let's get to the rest of
anything. You can't go into next year expecting anything.
You can't go into
Mike
next
Trout.
season expecting 110 games.
Okay, well, that's a big difference than not expecting anything.
I don't think what you said, Chris, was so far off.
Oh my gosh! Why are you writing his epitaph, Frank? This is a little weird.
Less than 40 games in 2 of the past 4 years. His
okay, but that doesn't mean he'll never play 40 games again. That seems like a big overreaction.
All right. I will not
I mean,
draft
look,
Mike Trout next year.
we can't predict the future. We are not as good at predicting injuries as we think as fantasy players. We say a lot of things very confidently about who can and cannot stay healthy, and it ends up being just guessing. So if Mike Trout goes out and plays 140 games next year, I would not be shocked. I would be surprised.
Yeah, but like, okay, I would be surprised if he played 140 games too, but there's a big difference between 140 and he'll probably give you nothing. Like,
Sure,
come
I agree
on.
with that.
All right, let's move on. News and notes. Max Fried could rejoin the Braves rotation Sunday against the Marlins. He resumed throwing last week and threw a bullpen without issue on Tuesday. He's been out since early July with left forearm neuritis. So hopefully all is good, and he's back this weekend. Tanner Bybee's next scheduled start will be pushed back a few days due to right shoulder tightness. That means he won't start this weekend and loses his two-start status. Julio Rodriguez has begun some light baseball activities, but remains without a clear timetable to return. Jerry DiPoto noted that the nature of high ankle injuries makes it difficult to predict a recovery timeline for J-Rod. Jordan Westberg was officially placed on the IL with a fractured right hand. The Orioles also optioned Heston Kjerstad back to AAA. Luis Rengifo was out of the lineup after re-injuring his wrist on a swing on Wednesday. He missed time with that same injury earlier in July. He was on the IL for that. Ronaldo Lopez will not start Saturday, but is still considered day-to-day. He left his previous outing with right forearm tightness, and I believe that Grant Holmes will start in his place this weekend. Jack Flaherty will make his Dodgers debut Saturday against the A's. Alex Cobb will make a rehab start at AAA on Saturday. If everything goes well, he should join the Guardians after that. Here's a name we haven't heard in a while. Tyler Mahle should return to the Rangers rotation next week. He is returning from Tommy John surgery, has looked good in 6 rehab starts, a 2.50 ERA, a .83 whip, 18 strikeouts over 18 innings. It's an incredibly small sample. Tyler Mahle is, he's never really been a superstar. He's been serviceable at times for fantasy. So I think this is like the deepest of lottery tickets, but 14% rostered, in those 15-team roto leagues. You have any interest in like a Tyler Mahle?
I mean, the Rangers were confident enough to get rid of their only depth in Michael Lorenzen because they had Mahle coming back. So he'll probably be. I don't know. I don't know that he'll be part of the streamer game this year, but he'll probably be part of the streamer game next year.
Parker Meadows is likely to be activated by the Tigers this weekend. He's 14% rostered, and I think he's a name that definitely deserves a look in 5 outfielder leagues. 3 outfielder leagues, not so much, but put up some big numbers in the minors, has some power and speed. The Tigers need all the help they can get. Some prospect updates. Junior Caminero had a big game on Thursday at AAA, 2 for 4 with a 3-run homer. And Brewers pitching prospect Jacob Misiorowski was promoted to AAA. Perhaps a name we could see up next year with the Brewers. Let's talk about some waiver wire pitchers from Thursday. And Ben Lively turned in another quality start. This one up against the Orioles. 6 innings, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts, only 9 whiffs on 90 pitches. But he has been consistent. 3 earned runs or fewer in 17 of 19 starts for the Guardians. And Carson Fulmer, remember the name, Carson Fulmer, a former first-round pick by the White Sox way back in 2015. He is now starting for the Angels, and he had a really good start here against the Rockies. 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts, had 18 whiffs on 79 pitches, 7 of those on the changeup. The changeup has looked great. Kind of wonder if, maybe he's picked up something from Tyler Anderson, who also has a great changeup, different-handed pitchers, but very different ends of the spectrum, Chris. Ben Lively, 73% rostered. He's only out there in shallower leagues. And then Carson Fulmer is the deepest of the deep league plays.
Yeah. Lively is one of those pitchers where it's not quite clear how he's getting away with this, but it keeps happening. And, this was doing it against a tough matchup. So that was interesting to see. I don't really expect much more than just streamer production from Ben Lively the rest of the way. He doesn't generate very many swings and misses. His control's solid, but not like outstanding. He's generating weak contact and has a good team though. So he can continue to be useful, but I don't think he's likely to be much more than solid. And I'm going to be honest. I haven't given Carson Fulmer a second look yet. Maybe that's me not doing the necessary due diligence that I should. But we're talking about a 30-year-old who has never really been good at any point at the major league level. So I stand by my skepticism here.
That is most likely completely fair analysis on Carson Fulmer. This was his first quality start since April 28th of 2018. So, I thought that was pretty interesting. 4% rostered, AL only league, something like that.
Yeah, I think AL only.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted to quickly mention Trevor Rogers' line here in his Orioles debut. It still remains baffling. I understand this is confirmation bias because we really did not understand the trade in the first place when the Orioles went out and got him. But at the Guardians, tough matchup. 4 1/3 innings, 5 runs allowed, 3 walks to 3 strikeouts, 12 hard hits, 97.8 average exit velocity. I know we don't really care about win-loss record, but like Trevor Rogers is 2-10 on the season.
Yeah.
He's got a 4.76 ERA, 155 WHIP. I just no idea what the Orioles were thinking. Maybe they make
So like I can
and,
see
and it turns around, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I could see like, hey, this is a former first round pick. He was top 3 in rookie of the year voting, I believe. He used to throw 95, 96, 97 miles an hour as a lefty. He's averaging 91.5 miles an hour right now with his fastball. So he's a long way from that. But I can see the argument that, hey, we see something that can get him right. I think it's very unlikely to happen this year. Like, if you want to say, hey, in the offseason, he's going to work and go to drive line or whatever and add 3 miles per hour to his fastball, then we can talk. But I don't see any reason to believe that things are going to happen for him this year, to the point where I'm staring at him in an AL only league, and I'm not sure I want to add him.
He's probably going to do more harm than good.
I mean, that's my concern, right? Is if he puts up a 5 ERA the rest of the way, and he's not like, it's not like he's striking out a batter per inning. I'm not sure how useful this guy's actually going to be.
Yeah. Again, that is Trevor Rogers, not great in his Orioles debut. Only had 2 waiver wire hitters here on the list. We spoke about Michael Toglia. The other name is Mason Wynn, who looks to be heating back up, 2 for 5 with his 8th home run. He has 3 home runs in his last 7 games, consistently batting leadoff for the Cardinals. 281 batting average on the season. It's modest power and speed. Scott, Mason Wynn is 66% rostered. That kind of feels like the right amount, right? I don't know that he's a must roster in every league.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think he's must roster in every league. He's pretty fringy, and shortstop's a pretty deep position. In fact, I have in my roto rankings, I have Mason Wynn 33rd. Some of the guys ahead of him are hurt, but
shortstop is such a deep position too. That's what makes it so tough.
Right. I have Tyler Fitzgerald ahead of him. I have Xavier Edwards ahead of him.
Yeah, same for me. So can't knock it. I wanted to quickly mention July has wrapped up. So we have all the numbers on overall offense. And I just wanted to point this out. So offense through June, from the start of the season through June, it was a 242 batting average. And I do apologize in advance. I'm going to throw a lot of numbers out there. But through June, it was a 242 batting average, 705 OPS, 11.1% home run to fly ball ratio across the league. In July alone, it was 248 with a 735 OPS and a 13% home run to fly ball ratio. This might not sound like a lot, but league-wide OPS jumping 30 points and home run to fly ball ratio jumping nearly 2 percentage points from the first 3 months to just July is a massive jump in offense. Just to put this in perspective, last year, the jump was from a 729 OPS to 740, 12.2% home run to fly ball rate to 13.2. So 1 percentage point on the home run to fly ball ratio, 11 points of OPS. And then in 2022, from a 706 OPS to 713, 11.4% to 11.5%. So a little bit of a jump. This is just a huge jump. And I don't know that there's an explanation. Obviously, we talked a lot about it throughout the month. I don't know if it's related to baseballs or whatever. Someone sent me a tweet because I tweeted these numbers out that apparently July was like the hottest it's ever been, in years or decades or whatever it might be. So maybe, that just contributed to the ball flying more than it did. But I just wanted to highlight truly how much offense was up in July.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to do the math real quick because what's interesting is the difference between April through June and July this season is about the difference in OPS between 2022 and 2023. The league-wide OPS in 2022 was 706. It was 734 in 2023. And that was a difference of about 1,600 runs, which comes out to about an 8% difference in scoring over the course of the full season. That's a pretty significant difference in offensive environments. So the problem is, as is always the case with these discussions, is what's it going to look like in August? What's it going to look like in September? I assume that offense will remain up, but I wish I could say that more confidently.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing is like the lack of predictability. So if you'll remember the conversation in 2022, which was like the worst year for offense in a very long time, and I guess it still is now that this one has kind of eclipsed it after starting out below it. Remember the conversation in 2022? That's when they introduced the humidor to all the ballparks, and offense was just dreadful in April and still pretty darn bad in May, and then picked up a lot in the summer. Not quite as much as this year, but a lot in the summer. And the thinking then was, okay, they're storing the ball at a consistent temperature and humidity level, regardless of what the actual temperature and humidity level is. And so that's going to have it's going to restrict the ball's flight during the colder months, but it's going to amplify the ball's flight during the warmer months. And so we're going to see a greater disparity in hitter outcomes between the colder months and the warmer months. That was the talk in 2022, because that's basically how it played out. But then last year kind of destroyed that whole thinking, because there wasn't the disparity between the cold months and the warm months. And now this year there has been, even more drastically than 2022. Because it started out worse than 2022, and now it's better than 2022. So there may still be something there. We're talking a sample of 3 seasons, and only 2 have really fit that. That like the 2023, the fact that things played out so differently in that season is why I think it's still very much a mystery what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And that was my last point, is that I think the answer here was that we can't predict the unpredictable. And that's kind of where we're at over the past, handful of years with baseball, between sticky substances and juice baseballs and humidors. And it's become pretty tough to just predict on a year-to-year basis, a month-to-month basis, what offense is going to look like and how it will affect pitchers across the landscape. Let's take our final break, and when we return, we'll talk about some rankings, risers, and fallers, our Week 20 preview. We'll do that right after this.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
Welcome back in. Let's talk about some rankings, risers, and fallers. And we are kind of up against it right now. So you guys have 2 minutes each to talk about 2 to 3 players that have either moved way up or way down. And Scott, we will start with you.
Okay. Why don't you start with Chris instead? I don't have my notepad pulled up here.
Chris, we will start with you.
All right, so 2 that moved down, Garrett Crochet and
You're on the clock.
Okay, I already started.
I'll just let you know. Well,
Garrett Crochet and Max Scherzer. I moved Garrett Crochet down to SP 50, which might, I will grant, be an overreaction, and Max Scherzer down to SP 51. I don't know how you can expect Garrett Crochet to be a difference maker the rest of the way? I think it is one of the biggest questions moving forward because look, he's already at unprecedented levels with his innings. But if we're going to draft him where I think we're going to draft Garrett Crochet next year, which is as a top 20 starting pitcher at least, you're going to have to do so with the expectation that he can give you 160 good innings, which is going to be a pretty big jump in innings from what he's likely to give us this season already. So it's going to be really interesting. I would love to see, even if he only goes 4 or 5 innings most starts, I would just love to see Garrett Crochet pitch well the rest of the way, even though I think the ceiling is significantly lower than we thought it was earlier on. On the moving up side, like we mentioned earlier this week, I did move Pablo Lopez to my number 12 SP. Part of that was just I didn't really like anyone else as my SP12 candidates and might as well go with Pablo Lopez, who I do like and is pitching well right now. And then I moved Jackson Holiday, obviously, really going out on a limb there, moving him up in the rankings after he gets called up. But I was more aggressive than either one of you. I think he's a top 15 second baseman for me and a top 20 shortstop. And who's the other one? Xavier Edwards moved up. Xavier Edwards is my number 17 second baseman. And honestly, with Luis Rengifo dealing with that wrist injury, Nolan Gorman continuing to just be kind of bleh, it wouldn't take a lot for Xavier Edwards to move into the top 15 at that position either.
201. Perfect, Chris. I love it. And
that's
yes,
why they pay me the big bucks.
I moved up Jackson Holiday and Xavier Edwards as well. Pablo Lopez, also my SP12. So we are simpatico there.
Hey, yeah.
Scott, over to you for some rankings movers.
Okay, so Hunter Green is now a top 15 pitcher for me.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Getting him ahead of Shota Imanaga, Freddie Peralta, Sonny Gray.
3 more homers for Imanaga today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that didn't seem like much of a stretch. Blake Snell's right behind him at 16.
Oh,
So
I am
totally.
way too low on Blake Snell.
No?
I only moved him up to 40.
I moved him up to 20.
Wow.
So are you confident or are you not confident, Chris? I'm confident.
I have no idea,
Okay.
but I'm going to move him up now just because.
Okay. Jazz Chisholm is now in my top 12 outfielders because love the change for him going to the Yankees. Obviously, it's worked out well so far. And Ketel Marte. I've made him the number 1 second baseman rest of season. Quit playing around. He's way ahead of Jose Altuve in terms of production. Altuve's good, but Ketel Marte's been better. And just a bonus one here, Jackson Holiday. He's moved up about in my second base and shortstop rank. He's about in that 20 range, same that Coby Mayo is at third base for all the same reasons. The same pros and cons there for Jackson Holiday.
Can I point out one second baseman you guys may be forgetting with Ketel Marte as your number 1?
Yes.
Betts?
Mookie Betts might be back next week.
Yeah.
He might be.
That was my next question is if Betts returns, does he retake the first spot over to Ketel Marte?
I moved him up to number 2 for what it's worth. So
Okay.
I moved them both past Altuve.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, I moved Ketel Marte up to my number 1 second baseman as well. 1 minute and 40 seconds. Great job by you as well, Scott. Some names I wanted to highlight. Blake Snell, who we already talked about, I moved him up to my SP20. He just looks like he's completely back, coming off that 15 strikeout performance last weekend. Garrett Crochet down to my SP37, which I thought was aggressive, and Chris was like, nope, take that. I'm going to dunk on you and lower him even more. Brent Rooker.
Yeah, I have Crochet 30th for what it's worth. I didn't go quite as dramatic as you guys.
Brent Rooker just had a ridiculous July. I mean, his season numbers overall are amazing. I mean,
He only had 1 bet.
years past, he's been, okay, a slugger. He's going to strike out a lot. It's a low batting average. It's a lot of home runs, yada, yada. This year, I mean, he's just a legitimately really, really good hitter. So I moved him up to my 20th ranked outfielder on the season. Colton Cowser, who we've talked a lot about. I know I said he's must add. You know, in 3 outfielder leagues, I moved him up to my 45th ranked outfielder. So he's right on that fringe. You know, maybe some people use some outfielders in their utility spots. I think if that's the case, then yeah, Colton Cowser is bordering on a must roster outfielder in a 3 outfielder league. And someone I moved way down was Andres Jimenez. Outside my top 20 second baseman in both roto and head-to-head points. He's my 23rd ranked second baseman at this point. And the numbers have just been really bad over the past month or so for Jimenez. Since July 6th, he is batting .231, 0 homers, 2 runs, 4 RBI, 2 steals, and that's in
Honestly,
a really good lineup too. So
I have him 24th, and I felt for a while like I've had him way too high.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I would drop him for either of Holiday or Xavier Edwards.
Absolutely, yeah.
Who was that you said?
Andres Jimenez.
I'll take another look.
Okay. Let's get into our Week 20 preview, and we will begin with the schedule for next week. We have 3 teams with 5 games, the Royals, the White Sox, and the Cubs. We have 18 teams with 6 games and 9 teams with 7 games, the Nationals, Giants, Phillies, Mets, Twins, Marlins, Guardians, Reds, and D-backs. What about the Rockies? Scott mentioned earlier, 6 home games in Coors Field, 3 against the Mets and 3 against the Braves. Starter sit these 2-star pitchers for next week. Chris, we will start with you. Robbie Ray is at the Nationals and home against the Tigers.
Nationals are still really bad against lefties, right?
I can quickly look that
I
up.
feel like they've been one of the worst in the league.
They had been. I doubt it's improved.
They are 27th in WOBA against lefties.
I would start Robbie Ray, yeah.
Yep. What about Christopher Sanchez? This one might seem like a slam dunk, but Scott, he gets the Dodgers and the D-backs, 2 teams that are both really good against lefties.
I mean, I'd still probably start him because he's in that range of pitchers you pretty much always start when they have 2 starts.
Yeah. I agree.
I could see sitting him in a roto league, though, especially a
I could see
shallower
it.
one.
It depends. It depends what your categorical needs are. Certainly not in points leagues. Points leagues, it's must start.
This is what we spoke about yesterday with Nick Lodolo, and Sanchez hasn't struggled as much as Lodolo, but both the Dodgers and D-backs top 3 in WOBA against left-handed pitching this season. Those are 2 really, really tough matchups for Christopher Sanchez next week.
There are 2 spots separating Sanchez and Lodolo in my 2-star pitcher rankings.
What about Max Scherzer, who gets the Astros and at the Yankees next week? Chris, you mentioned you lowered Scherzer quite a bit.
No way. I don't think there's any. If he goes out and has 2 good starts, that's awesome, but there's no way you can start a guy who has left 3 different starts with arm fatigue, even in a 2-star week.
Okay, he's the one ranked right in between Sanchez and Lodolo for me.
Let's talk about Lodolo. He gets the Marlins and the Brewers. We mentioned those matchups yesterday. They're actually pretty good, but he has struggled. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, and I said I'd probably just do it in points leagues, but that ended up not being where I ranked him once I had all the 2-star pitchers in front of me because he's in that same range as Sanchez and Scherzer, where it's not like they're must start, but you're probably going to start him.
Chris, what about Bassett, who gets the Orioles, who he faced last time out and was very bad? He also gets the Oakland A's revenge game. What do you think about Chris Bassett?
Probably just points with the way he's pitching right now.
Yeah, I think so. Luis Severino is at the Rockies in Coors Field and at the Mariners. So you get those Jekyll and Hyde matchups, Scott.
So he is the top of my no thanks tier. So he just missed the cut for points leagues only tier. I could see doing it if you're really stretching for volume, but it wouldn't be something I'd do with enthusiasm. Luis Severino.
Last name on this list is Mackenzie Gore, who gets the Giants and the Angels next week. Chris?
No. I think you can just, even ahead of a 2-star week with decent matchups, I think you can just drop Mackenzie Gore. He looks really bad right now.
Yep. Drop him for Spencer Schwellenbach. Drop him for Hayden Birdsong.
Yeah. And it's not just because the results have been bad for him. His velocity's way down, which was the big thing that was early on. Very interesting. He stopped getting whiffs on his secondaries. Everything looks bad for Mackenzie Gore right now.
All right. Well, who are some 2-star pitchers that you actually can use next week? Scott, we'll go over to you.
All right. I don't love the 2-start slate so much this week, but Sean Manaea, coming off one of the best starts of his career, he gets the Cardinals and he gets the Mariners. So 2 good matchups. I don't know why he was so good last time, but here's hoping he can build off of it. Take advantage of the 2-start week. JP Sears is coming off a really good July, actually, when much of the league struggled. And he gets the White Sox and Blue Jays. So 2 really good matchups for JP Sears. A little lower on the list here, we have Jeffrey Springs, who did not look great in his return. One of his 2 starts is against the Cardinals. Realistically, you're probably just doing that in points leagues. The other's against Baltimore, for what it's worth. So pretty good matchups. and then a bad matchup. And then Colin Ray, who somehow keeps performing. He gets the Braves and the Reds, which are pretty good matchups.
Yeah. I do think the single star streamers are a little bit more appealing here.
Yeah, you got Hayden Birdsong going against the Tigers. He's available in more than half the league still. Spencer Schwellenbach barely makes the cut here. He's almost graduated from sleeper pitcher consideration. He gets the
You're going
Brewers.
to have to update it on Saturday and remove him. Or Sunday, whenever you update
Well,
it.
I'm just going to keep him there. But yeah, Brewers actually isn't a great matchup, but that's the level of trust I have in Schwellenbach. Sean Manaea gets the car. Oh, sorry, that was a 2-start option. Andrew Abbott is at Miami. They're worse than ever. Jose Quintana's at Seattle. They're still pretty bad. Michael Wacha against the Cardinals. He's just good, and that's a decent matchup. River Ryan gets the Pirates, and that's it.
Spencer Schwellenbach, by the way, I noticed all three of us moved him inside of our top 60 starting pitchers rest of season, and rightfully so. He's been pretty good. The underlying numbers are actually awesome for Spencer Schwellenbach. So, yeah, we are all in. What about the hitters for next week? The best matchups, we have the Giants, the Reds, the Padres, the Mets, and the Braves. The worst hitter matchups, Tigers, Cubs, Rangers, Pirates, and the Rays. Scott, who are your sleeper hitters for week 20?
Sleeper hitters for week 20. Yeah, okay. So Colton Cowser tops the list just because he's been so hot. Only one lefty on the schedule for the Orioles, so we trust him to play. Their matchups are decent enough that I would use him. I mentioned Michael Toglia earlier with the Rockies having a full week of home games, and obviously he's been great. Mark Vientos, the Mets you mentioned have the 4th best matchups. It's kind of surprising he still qualifies for this list. Like I said, I moved him up to 15th in Roto and 13th in points at third base. That's Mark Vientos. Jorge Soler, the Braves' new leadoff hitter. They have the 5th best matchups, including 3 games at Coors Field. TJ Friedel with the Reds having the 2nd best matchups. I wish they weren't all on the road, but it is 7 games against a lot of weak pitchers, so I think TJ Friedel still makes the cut here. Couple just hot hands who their matchups aren't prohibitive would be Xavier Edwards and Jake Berger, both Marlins, obviously. Then we got JD Martinez here with the Mets having the 4th best matchups. It's been pretty blah, but in a good lineup, and the matchups are good. JJ Bleday, nothing but righties on the schedule for Oakland, and the matchups are good, so I'd play him. And then Brendan Rodgers, who is one of the Rockies' better hitters at home. He's someone I recommend to take advantage of those good, the full week of home games this week.
All right. Again, that was week 20. Let's wrap up with some of our leftovers from Thursday's action. The pitching standout, Seth Lugo, bounced back with another great start, this time at the Tigers. 8 innings, 1 run with 3 strikeouts. Charlie Morton had a strong start up against the Marlins. 6 innings, 1 unearned run with 6 strikeouts. Sonny Gray had a great start, which was wasted because of Ryan Helsley. At the Cubs, 7 innings, 2 runs with 9 strikeouts. And Shota Imanaga was cruising and then ran into some trouble in his final inning of work. The final line, 6 2/3, 10 hits, 4 runs, 7 strikeouts, 2 homers allowed. Imanaga has allowed 9 home runs over his last 7 starts. Chris, anything you'd like to add on Imanaga, Sonny Gray, Charlie Morton, and Seth Lugo?
I mean, the Seth Lugo thing just remains extremely funny. 8 innings of 1-run ball with 3 strikeouts is just, it's objectively funny. I'm laughing about it. Out on the town, having the time of my life with all the other Seth Lugo haters. They're just out of frame laughing too. I don't know. Like, I still think he's going to end I still think he's likelier to have an ERA closer to 4 than 3 the rest of the way, but I've been saying that all year and he keeps making me look stupid. So I'll just keep looking stupid, I guess.
It's been true in his last 4 starts. Even
Yeah,
though
no,
2 of them have been awesome.
He had like a 4.68 ERA in July, I believe. So, you know, it was starting to look okay for your guy, Chris. And then he comes out and, I mean, look, this is cope to a certain extent. Seth Lugo's had a really easy schedule. I think he's faced the White Sox like 26 times this season or something. That might be an exaggeration, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're creating fake news.
I keep seeing people do he's in the AL Central, so he's going to have great matchups. It's a balanced schedule now. That doesn't matter nearly as much as it used to. People, I don't know how people are overlooking that change this year.
The Royals legitimately are like basically, I think, a 500 team when they're not playing the White Sox this season. It's actually been kind of astounding how much they have like a sub 3, maybe sub 2 ERA against the White Sox this season. But again, this is just cope about a pitcher who's making me look dumb and has made me look dumb all season.
Mm-hmm. I am looking at the schedule. He's faced the White Sox 3 times, Seth Lugo, and with the balanced schedule, sometimes pitchers only face their division opponent once throughout a season. So he's faced the White Sox 3 times. That has been pretty fortunate. He's faced the Tigers twice, the Angels, the Oakland A's twice, the Marlins. So yeah, it's actually worked out pretty well this season for Seth Lugo. What about some hitting standouts? Jose Ramirez continues his awesome season, 2 for 3 with his 28th home run. He has 4 homers in his past 3 games. David Fry has been quiet, but launched a home run here on Thursday, his 9th of the season. His first extra base hit since July 5th, his first home run since May 31st. I lowered David Fry to my 23rd ranked catcher this week. Anthony Santander continues to destroy baseballs. His 32nd home run. He has 9 home runs in his past 14 games. Michael Garcia, he is off and running again. He has 4 steals over his last 4 games, and he's led off 2 in a row. Matt Olson looks like he's heating back up. He's got 3 home runs in his past 2 games. He has 5 homers in his past 6. Austin Riley, 1 for 4 with his 15th home run. Basically, since the middle of June, he's been Austin Riley, a 309 batting average, 12 home runs, and OPS over 1,000. Paul Goldschmidt hitting much better lately, 349 with 4 home runs in his last 11. Cody Bellinger has looked great since coming off the IL. 2 home runs, 5 runs, 5 RBI in 3 games. And Seiya Suzuki destroyed a baseball, 459 feet, and he's basically broken out this year. He's on pace for 24 home runs, 15 steals over, I think 125 games is what he's pacing out for right now. So it's actually just happened. It's been the breakout season for Seiya Suzuki. Scott, anything to add? Lots of names here, but some guys that are looking to heat up.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think Paul Goldschmidt's going to turn into Paul Goldschmidt again. You don't have to go back much further to find the inflated strikeout rate and the very blah percentages. You don't have to go back much further than the 11 games. Let's see, what else? Cody Bellinger is batting 280 now. And if you pace his stats over a full 160 games, it's like a 20 homer, 10 steal season, which is actually a little better than I thought. Obviously, not quite living up to his draft status or last year's numbers, but Cody Bellinger's been a solid player. Head-to-head points per game, it's actually about the same as Teoscar Hernandez. That's a format that would probably hurt Hernandez and help Bellinger, but the point remains. Bellinger hasn't been as good as you wanted him to be, but perhaps has been better than you think.
All right, some bullpen updates for the Braves. Raisel Iglesias struck out 1 for his 23rd save. For the Cardinals, I mentioned Ryan Helsley got the 9th inning with a 2-run lead. He gave up 3 runs on 4 hits, took his 3rd blown save and 4th loss of the season. The Angels, Ben Joyce got the 8th inning again with a 2-run lead, facing 9-1-2 in the Rockies lineup. He gave up a hit and a walk, but he got out of it. It was Hunter Strickland who got the 9th inning, and he did that with a 2-run lead. And he gave up a game-tying 2-run homer to Jake Cave, of all people. Strickland took his 2nd blown save. The Angels would lose in extras. My guess is Ben Joyce gets the next save opportunity. I feel like he deserves it, but can't say it with 100% certainty.
I still think Ben Joyce is the guy to have there. Whether he gets the next save or not, even if they go back to Hunter Strickland, I just think Hunter Strickland is likely to not hold on to that job anyway.
Yep. And then for the Rockies, Victor Vodnik got the bottom of the 9th inning with the game tied, facing 8-9-1. He walked 1, but got out of that. And the Rockies took the lead. It was Tyler Kinley who closed it out for his 6th save of the season. To stream or not to stream for the weekend, Friday is up first, and it is not the most attractive day. I think Tyler Phillips at the Mariners is okay. I think yesterday,
Paul Blackburn at the Angels is fine. And Randy Vasquez, the first game out of Coors Field, right? No.
they're in
they're on
Anaheim right now.
But still, on the road, I could see like he's not very good. He's had a couple of like decent starts with 2 strikeouts, but I could see him having a good start here.
Yeah. I would probably say Phillips, Luis Ortiz, and Blackburn.
Sure.
But I don't love any.
Yeah, I guess that's fine. There was somebody else who I liked yesterday. Seems like he's been removed now.
You
Maybe
go.
Kyle Harrison?
No, I don't know.
All
We'll
right.
keep going.
It might have been Dean Kramer.
Yeah, it was Dean Kramer. Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him. Where'd he go?
I don't know.
On
Did he get pushed back?
yeah.
It's not important. I don't like him that much.
All right. On Saturday, some options here. We have Grant Holmes potentially against the Marlins. He looked good in his first start earlier in the week, and that's a great matchup.
I could see Kyle Gibson at the Cubs. I could see.
I would say Jordan Montgomery at the Pirates. He's just been so bad.
Yeah, it's been too bad.
I could see DJ Hertz. You know, we know he has upside. It's a risky play, but there is upside there, and he's coming off a good start.
That's a ceiling play. If you want a floor play, Jose Soriano against the Mets. I know it didn't work out against the A's last time, but really good ground ball pitcher. That can neutralize a powerful lineup.
I don't think David Peterson is good, but at the Angels, maybe
It could be fine. Yeah.
I think I would rank probably Grant Holmes, Peterson, and then I don't know, one of Gibson or DJ Herz on Saturday. What about Sunday? We have Carson Spires up against the Giants. We have Ryan Nelson at the Pirates, Tobias Myers at the Nationals, Simeon Woods Richardson gets the White Sox, River Ryan at the A's, Jose Quintana at the Angels. It's not a terrible day on Sunday.
No, it's not. I mean, the way Quintana's been throwing recently, against the Angels, I think that's probably my favorite.
I like River Ryan at Oakland. I think Simeon Woods Richardson, I don't think is very good, but against the White Sox, I think he can be useful.
Tobias Myers at Washington, I like. I know you don't, Chris. But
Mitchell Parker versus Milwaukee, I think could be fine.
I'm done with Parker, but yeah,
I'm
done with Parker. I'm over it.
Yeah.
Over Parker. I'd go Ryan Nelson, I think, before I went Parker.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Sunday is the day that you're looking at if you do need streamers, and we are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. I will not be back next week, but these guys will. Bye-bye.